this time we're gonna get this going, all right? And we're gonna start off with Javon. He's gonna give us some knowledge about the area of suicide. So tune in because that's knowledge that may be heavy, doesn't mean, right? If you have 1 in 10 people that are suffering with, or men that are suffering with anxiety and depression, and only half of those are going to get assistance. So that could lead to other areas. So pay attention, all right? We're on. Assistance.
Like, man. Good morning. Good morning.
So my name is JavonReese. I work at a nonprofit in Detroit called Black Family Development, where I'm our suicide prevention coordinator. So I go into the community to present about suicide so that we know some of the common signs and common symptoms. But I'm gonna abbreviate it so we stay on track, so that way you're not here to 10 p.m. You know you want to be. So what I'll first start with is I want you to look around. Look around the room, like literally look around the room. About how many people do you think is here? 55. So we'll go with 55. So the statistics say 1 in 20 people seriously consider the thoughts of suicide. Not that they act on it, not that they plan for it, but they seriously consider the option of suicide because something is going on. So in a room of 50 to 60 people, you have around 3 people in here actively who may be thinking about suicide as an option because something's going on. So I'm going to abbreviate and go through our slides. I'll share the slides so that way we can get all the information, but I do want to keep it on time. So what I was going to cover is understanding the warning signs, and these are common signs. But the one thing I want to push when we talk about that is that it's personal. When a person's considering suicide, it's personal. So when they have these things or these ideas that people that fit this box maybe having thoughts of suicide. What I want you to leave here with is that everybody's at risk of suicide. It could be one thing to push you over the edge, no matter how you present it. So, room check real quick. How many of us know about Winnie the Pooh? Fair number? So who in the group of Winnie the Pooh do you think fits the box of a person that maybe have thoughts of suicide? Eeyore. What does Eeyore do? Okay, so Pooh in the group is talking about the sun. It's a sunny day. It's going to be a beautiful day. What Eeyore say? Oh, Pooh, the clouds are rolling in. It's going to rain real soon. Right? So we always focus on the Eeyores when people present that way. But what we do, we happen to miss the folks who show up like Tigger, who's bouncing around, who's happy for life, or has a zest for it. Right? So what I do want to leave here with is that knowing that we got to check on our Tiggers too. The people who show up okay, who show up all the time. Because we assume that they don't need anybody. So we know it's personal. The role of brotherhood, peer support, and the spiritual community of prevention is building a network. So that way you aren't alone. We know that suicide grows in aloneness and darkness. So in building a network in a community where you always have someone to lean on, it makes it a little less. So I did have, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I have can I have a volunteer? You know what you volunteer for, but take me break. All right, come on up. All right, so what I'll have Professor Mike will do is he's gonna hold his weight outstretched, and this is gonna represent whatever it needs to represent for you to imagine whatever that psychological pain is. So when I'm talking about suicide, it's not something that needs, when we talk about prevention, that needs to be done alone. It should. I hope this comes through right. So I did it for my wife, and she said it could work. So you can hold it with 2 hands, and 1 hand is outstretched. It's a 10-pound dumbbell. So he's gonna hold it the whole time I'm presenting. This is gonna make sense. Okay. But let naturally. So if it starts to fall, let it fall, and then I'm gonna come to it. And then we're going to talk about a little bit what brotherhood means, real abbreviatedly, and then some actionable steps. So as I skip through the slides, I should start with warning content, but I'll speed it up. If at any point in time you do need to take a break, please take it for yourself, be an adult learner, and take time, because it's personal. Chances are we know someone who has died by suicide, either personal, professional, or in other circles that we occupy. So words matter. The language of suicide matters. So with this one, like I was sharing the slide, I want to give the slide deck. How we talk about it matters, and it brings the stigma, right? So we talk about committed. What are things people commit? Murder. And it's simply crime, right? trying to die by suicide or attempting to die by suicide used to be considered a crime in some places. So the stigma to the word committed, we want to move away from and go to die by suicide, some other things. So there's some other things in here. The other one I'll focus on. Oh look, it's getting heavy. It's getting heavy, right? So in this example, as it's getting heavy, the brotherhood, or not to being alone, you don't need to take a person's pain. I'm jumping up through my presentation, but you don't need to take a person's pain away from them, right? So sometimes all they need is a little lift. Right. And that's literally all they need. You don't have to take it away. So then it becomes our burden. How we show up for each other, sometimes it can just be a little lift. If everyone in a put your shoulder out. Whatever that brotherhood is, thank you, Michael. Thank you. Give Michael a round of applause. So I'm hoping that was a visual aspect of what it takes to form a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a community around folks so we can have those open dialogue and be comfortable with the conversations. So I'm going to go to these slides. So the silent epidemic, I'm not big on quantitative, I like qualitative, come with the story, but we do need to look at the numbers, right? So in the US in 2023, 49,000 people died by suicide. There's an asterisk next to that. Around 1.5 million people have attempted suicide. It's an asterisk next to that. Asterisk is important. 3.7 million people had a plan for suicide. There's an asterisk next to that as well. And 12.8 million people seriously considered thought suicide. Can anybody tell me why there's an asterisk next to all those numbers?
It's an estimate reported.
Okay, it hasn't been reported. It's an estimate, right? So who's ultimately the person who decides whether or not a death to write out that the death was caused by suicide? The coroner. Does the coroner know every single person that passes? So what about drug overdoses? Are they all accidental? No. You don't know unless things are like a note or left behind or things. What about those motor vehicle accidents where there's no skid marks? We don't know. So chances are these numbers are extremely high. And then guess what? We, as the people, can influence the coroner to write something else on the death certificate. Because the shame that comes, that is a stigma that's associated with suicide, or knowing that someone died by suicide. I know in my family, there's people, I don't know if they died by suicide, but I don't know how they passed. All I know is, so-and-so's gone. What happened? He woke up dead. We don't know. So investigating those things and learning, it may be a little bit closer than we think. And culturally, in all the different cultures, there's stigma associated with mental health. And even in the world of mental health, there's still stigma associated with suicide specifically. But sometimes when we talk about mental health, we leave out the aspect of suicide within the world. So it's suicide and mental health, and just not all inclusive of mental health. And then I put on here specifically, as this is a men's conference, men die by suicide about 4 times more likely than women. So what does that tell us? Is that we have the capacity for lethality. So when we choose, we go more lethal methods, and we can break that number down into other things, but there's a lot of stuff I try to fit in here. So, I was going to get some things from you, the group, like why men don't talk? Real men don't cry. How many of us heard that? Right? Real men don't cry. Or masculinity equals strong and stoic. So, for me, I have more time, I'll tell you about my family, and our journey within the adult space was 13 months. My mom had 13 months. From Fort Wayne, Indiana, it's not corn and all other stuff. We didn't grow up on a farm. We grew up in the urban city of Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's 13. I remember 11 out of 13. So when I'm talking about strong and stoic, my mother passed in 2006 when I was 17. I didn't realize it, but playing it back culturally, I showed up strong and stoic. Of course, I cried at the funeral, but after the funeral, guess what? You can't cry no more. You're supposed to be strong, stoic, and I was a football player. So all those things. I would tell you how I got tricked into therapy, but it helps, and all those other things. And then another reason, shame for needing help. So when you do need help, it's like, you don't need no help, you're good. You got it, bro. Or however you present it in those things, it matters. You have the fear of judgment, so you don't want to look weak. Or it's just uncomfortable to talk about. Some of these just don't fit, and sometimes we don't want to talk about it. So I know in our locker room, I played at Eastern Michigan too, university. So in our locker room, when we joked around, we talked about everything. But when it came a little darker, what we did, we inserted a joke. We got people to laugh. If everybody's laughing, everybody's okay. But we know that's not the case. We didn't know better, but that's what we knew at the time. Because it's uncomfortable to talk about. It's uncomfortable to walk through pain with someone. It's sometimes better, or we believe it's better, if we can take this person that's in pain and bring them over here to the help. And we skip this middle part where a conversation sometimes is the only thing they need. So how many are CPR trained? CPR first aid trained. Now, when you find a bleeding, or not find a bleeding person, hopefully, but when someone's bleeding, do you go in and try to find the vein, the artery, where the bleed's coming from, and try to suture the vessel to close it off and then work out so that way it doesn't fest and be infected? Do you do all that?
No.
Somebody with more training does that, right? So the same thing applies to a mental health landscape where you don't see the wound. Sometimes all you need to do is apply pressure. And that pressure is conversation. And it shows up in research over and over that the conversation alone is what helps a person. And if you need more help, just like you would with CPR and first aid, you take them to the professional that's needing that space. But sometimes a person doesn't need the therapist, doesn't need the modalities or other things. Sometimes all they need was a band-aid. And it's okay. The conversation is that band-aid. The brotherhood is that band-aid. And you can heal if you can get it off your chest. So let's see, I'll go through a couple more things and I'll close. So I got to talk about the collective response. And then a brother's keeper. If I had more time, we will really flesh this out. But when I thought about it, and when I was looking at the agenda for today, what does it mean to me? These are things that it means to me, and I'm hoping you are taking notes of what brotherhood actually means to you. So it's refusing to look away. If you notice something, if you see something, investigate, ask, say it, however best you can. We are intuitive beings. We can tell when our friends, our close family are not feeling well. We know that. But it's uncomfortable to approach it. It's out of fear, but it is also, we don't want our person that we know to not be okay and to seriously think they have the capacity for suicide or anything like that. It's being present. So once you know something's going on, don't disappear or shy away because of the fear. Embrace it and step into it. Step into that uncomfortability. Be active as you can be. With activity comes capacity. So don't do over your capacity. I'm learning that currently. So I'll do my best, and I'm active in making sure I don't promise more than I can offer. And then when I promise what I can promise, I follow through. So for one of my friends, once a month, he asked me to call. And the first question that we're supposed to talk about is whether or not he purchased a firearm. And then we can talk about everything else, just once a month. So I make sure I make that phone call once a month. Did you purchase a firearm? Because for him, in his safety, it was if he purchased a firearm, chances are he's going to use it himself. So I was supposed to immediately call for help, if that was the case. So whenever we have our conversation, not every time I talk to him, I don't bring it up, because the thought of suicide isn't the person, it's the conditions going on with him. So really separate those things. And then just care. Just care for the person. Don't make it little, and don't make it bigger than what it is and what the person is deciding to be. And then I'm going to forward to the warning signs, so comment on quick. So this picture, I took some pictures off the web. What do you think all these pictures have in common, or why I selected them? You just shouted out.
Isolation.
Isolation, we see isolation. What else you see? Just men being men, doing stuff. You have some people just isolated. There's somebody over here stretching and running, laughing, modeling, I'm guessing, looking out the window, enjoying life. The point of this picture that I was going to talk about is that suicide shows up differently for everybody. Every one of these people could possibly be having thoughts of suicide. The opposite is true too, so it's both and. Every one of these people, even the most distressed picture up here, could not be having thoughts of suicide. The only way we know is if we begin to ask and investigate and really start to have those uncomfortable conversations. So here are some of the common warning signs. They fall into these groups. I won't read them all. So they fall into behaviors we see. So things we actually see in a person, changes, or whatever we see in those. The words that we hear, so things that we're hearing. So we're hearing, I'm just so tired. That can mean anything. So ask them, what does that mean? What are you tired? Are you just tired today? Are you tired of living? What does that mean? And really begin to navigate what that means. I put feelings we notice because we're intuitive. So we can tell when a person's desperate, all those other things. And then experiences we learn. So if you know a person that has attempted suicide before, they've learned a couple of things. They've learned possibly what doesn't work, and that they might become more lethal. Research shows that the person doesn't have, or the intervention isn't, research shows that if an intervention hasn't happened for that person, chances are they'll increase in lethality. So, knowing that, or they may have learned what did work, and during this time, they have tunnel vision, potentially, and they forgot. So, just need some reminders, whatever that looks like. So, in all these categories, this isn't an exhaustive list because it's personal. So, how many of us pets? Right? Are we pet friendly here?
Yeah.
Pet friendly, so I'm gonna be anti-pet just because, okay? So if I'm a person that doesn't think animals are great or anything important, to me, when you tell me something crucial that happened to your animal, your pet, for me, I'm like, that's not a reason. But for that person, that could be a reason. We got gamers in here?
Yes.
That could be a reason for a person to stay around. Literally, one of the clinicians I work with, she shared the reason for her person that was having thoughts of suicide, they decided not to kill themselves, was because the game was coming out in a couple of weeks and they wanted to play it. So she used that, and then the whole 300 and some hours of playable content with that game and all those days to form a plan, and the person's still using it. So we have to be able to maximize what's important to that person and minimize what's not. There's a little moments like that as well. So this is the actual thing. So this is what I want you to leave with. It's part of the many trainings that I do, the evidence-based trainings that I do at Black Family Development. And they all fall within this category. So what can we do? When we know something, we're going to ask. And then on the next slide, we're going to tell us what that means. And then we'll listen, and then we'll connect them to resources and stay connected to form a brotherhood and what that looks like. So when I'm talking about ask, I mean ask directly about suicide. You have to know when you leave that conversation that suicide is not what you're talking about. So however best you want to do it, I want you to not necessarily only ask about harm, because asking about harm is different from asking about suicide. A person who plans to harm themselves, this may be something that they do to feel, to cope, and all that. Not the best coping strategy, but it's something that they're doing, right? And they need to live beyond the harm. For a person who is seriously considering suicide, they don't need to live beyond any harm, because this is the answer. They have finality. There's nothing beyond this. So if you ask a person seriously considers suicide, 8 times out of 10, but 9 times out of 10, they're going to say no. They're not planning to harm themselves. When you ask them directly about suicide, it's a different conversation, different things need to happen. I put an example of what I do, or when I'm called to ask or consult, and how to ask a person about suicide. You want to name what you've seen, heard, or changed in that person, because it shows that they're still human. It shows that they are seen and that they do matter. So I say when people are doing whatever it is that has changed for this person specifically, because it's personal, right? Sometimes they think about suicide. Are you thinking about suicide? So for me, it connects. It tells them that you're not alone in thinking about suicide. People think about suicide. And sometimes when these things show up, they're potentially thinking about it. Is this something that you're thinking about? And it's a yes or no. There's no beating around the bush, there's no ambiguous answer. I know for sure when I leave that conversation what's at risk. And then figuring out how things do. So figuring out how to ask. And if you've never asked a person about suicide, take time to look in the mirror and see exactly what it feels like to say it out loud. Because the first couple of times, and even now, as I'm more practiced in what I do, there's always a lump in my throat when it comes up. Because it's a big ask. It really is. And the next part, listen with empathy. If you don't know the difference between sympathy and empathy, look up Brene Brown on YouTube. It's a beautiful video, it's like 30 seconds or a minute, and she talks about it. And the way I explain it is sympathy is where you begin, and it's not putting anybody down for done this. Before a person asks for advice, we give them advice. You know, when I was going through that, when I experienced that, when my mom died, I did A, B, and C, you're gonna be all right. That's taking away their pain and making it about you. The empathetic part is when you're able to sit in there with them and listen. And then you're able to walk with them through the darkness, right? To whatever little bit of light there is, they'll find it if they're able to talk about it and actually share. Because most people aren't able to actually share, because listening is tough. Because that's when we have to sit in the pain, when we have to sit in whatever is going wrong. And we are uncomfortable because we don't want anybody to get as much pain or psychological pain to even consider suicide. So really being available for that conversation and walking with the person to where they need to be to get the help. Allow the person to interpret. Then give space for the person to relieve their internal burdens. The next part is connecting to resources. I always say this, we don't promise secrecy. We don't promise what?
Secrecy.
We don't promise secrecy. I'm not going to be the only person to know. Because I know for me, JavonReese, I have a little 3-year-old who don't sleep. So guess what? When I sleep, when she sleeps, I'm asleep. I'm not available. So if I'm not available, I need somebody to be available for you. So I want, like this picture is a circle. I want a circle around you that you connected to so you're always available to get someone. So I put 98 materials on the table. If you're unsure what 98 is, it is the Suicide Crisis Lifeline, and that's nationwide. And they are able to have conversations. Even if it's not about suicide, it can be about other things, you have ruminating mind. They'll talk, and there's always a warm voice available. There's a couple options for veterans. Press 1. Press 2 is Spanish is your first language, and press 3 if you identify within the LGBTQI plus community. And it's unfortunate because all those rollbacks that we kind of talked about, that's one thing that they're peeling back, and that service, the specific service, won't be available for option 3. So really investigating, that's the whole vote. We talk about that, but just make sure you know those things are happening when they're starting to roll back these mental health things that help, that are doing the job they're supposed to do, and now people don't have access to it. The other part that I highlighted, bolded, and made capitalized, only promise what you can do and follow through. If you promise it, you gotta do it. You can't promise it and then not show up. Because then it just shows or confirms for them maybe what they're thinking, that no one really cares, no one's committed to me, or no one is, or I'm not important enough, or whatever it is. So know what your capacity is and all those things. So I have some national, local, some websites and books as a resource. I had that idea to take this down. I was going to put a word sheet up, and we was going to tell each other resources so we could build it. But know what your resources are. So these are some of the resources I use or whatnot. So we have 988. We have a crisis text line. And 988 and the crisis text line are both textable. I don't know if your nieces or nephews are like mine. I was literally video chatting my niece, and she was texting me. She wouldn't talk, which is so weird. Is that weird or is that normal? But still, we were video chatting, looking at each other, and texting. So however that needs to happen, there's resources available. Local in Wayne County, you have some mobile teams that shows up on people's doorsteps to help. So you have the D1 Mobile Crisis, and you also have the FBI's Mobile Crisis. And then some websites to learn a little bit more about suicide and what we can do to help. You have the Suicide Prevention Resource Center, sprc.org, or the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, ASAFSP.org. There's many other. We talked about NAMI Detroit. We talked about APAF, and multiple resources. The CDC, they have a lot of things out there. So these are just some that I listed. I put a couple of phone apps because we are inundated apps for everyone. Because I participate with both of these in Virtual Hope Box and Adventure Self-Care Pet. They're interactive ways on the phone to maintain your mental health and remind us again. And then the last one, I put a book up here. The book titles are actually pretty long, the ones that I have, so I can only fit one on there. But the Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health by Dr. Rita Walker, who's a faculty member here, I just found out, that book is phenomenal. And it definitely brings a different landscape in the world of suicide prevention culturally, specifically to the Black African American experience. So definitely some good reads out there so that we were able to healthfully help each other. So in summary, I know I went over things really fast. Be your brother's keeper. Be active. Show up. Don't refuse to pay attention. Don't refuse to turn away. Refuse to turn away. Remember, no one man is an island, and that literally for me means in an island, even though it's alone and where it's at, it's teeming with life to help sustain it. So even on an island where it feels like it's the loneliness, there are things happening on that island to maintain that island's health. So get uncomfortable when warning signs show or intuition is telling you something. Investigate. Ask questions. Be investigative. The steps that I left you with. Ask directly about suicide. So we want to make sure that conversation happens. Listen with empathy.